Londres.
What about the people who are left behind? Globalization has losers as well as winners. And although the winners may be more numerous, the losers understandably command our sympathy and our attention. Partly because they very often represent the jobs that we remember growing up with. There's a very natural human nostalgia. When the Industrial Revolution happened, there was a lot of concern that the real work was in agriculture and that these new manufacturing jobs would never provide enough work to go around. Then as we transitioned to services, we had exactly the same kind of argument, but this time about manufacturing industries, that they were the only real work and there wasn't enough work cutting each other's hair and selling each other burgers. Deindustrialization is a hell of a thing to go through. In my constituency, we didn't have so much of it. The southeast of England never had much by way of heavy industry, but there's one exception, and one big exception, and that was the dockyards at Chatham. They were employing 12,000 people at peak. They closed in 1984, just as the coal mines and the steel mills were closing across the nation. And to this day, I meet constituents there who are still bitter about it, who blame Margaret Thatcher, who regard the whole closure programme as sadistic or as aimed at working class communities. And I understand their anger. Imagine being 50 years old, you've worked as a welder, say, and suddenly, through no fault of yours, the whole structure of your life collapses. It would be weird not to be angry in that situation. But it's only fair to tell the story up to the end. Unemployment in Chatham is now below 2%. There are more people working in the area covered by the historic dockyards than ever before in history. And what are they doing? A chunk of Medway University is there. It's a huge hub for the audiovisual sector. It's where they make Call the Midwife. In other words, although some jobs were displaced, other jobs sprang up to take their place. Now, none of this is to diminish the disruption and pain felt by people who suddenly lost their work. But it does provide it with a certain perspective. My late grandfather was a shipyard worker on the Clyde. I never met him. He had a typical unhealthy West of Scotland lifestyle. He died when he was very young, so I never got the chance to ask him whether he would rather have kept all of those shipyards working to capacity. But I suspect that if he could now see my cousins and me typing at screens for a living instead of hitting metal, he would have regarded that as a step forward.